We lived peacefully after my sister passed until my ex whispered, "She's gone now. Let's start fresh." Then I found my sister's real wedding ring hidden in a box she thought I'd never open. The night Naomi died, I remember holding her hand in the ER and promising I'd be okay. I lied. That promise haunted me every single day after. She was more than my little sister. She was the only person left who truly understood me. Our parents passed away years ago in a car accident. Naomi and I were all each other had. She was 27, bold and brilliant, studying music therapy and working part-time to help with bills. I was 33, barely keeping it together, and she was the glue holding me in place. She died on a rainy Tuesday night. A drunk driver ran a red light and T-boned her car. She never made it to the hospital. They kept her on life support just long enough for me to say goodbye. I remember the sound of the machines beeping, her hand still warm in mine, the nurse whispering, "Take your time." But what time? I hadn't prepared to say goodbye. No one ever does. The days that followed were a blur of funeral arrangements, paperwork, and suffocating silence in our apartment. Everywhere I looked, I saw her. The chipped mug she loved, her stack of music books by the couch, the scarf she always forgot on the kitchen chair. I stopped opening the piano room. Couldn't bear to hear silence where there used to be music. Friends came by. Some sent flowers. Most stopped calling after the first few weeks. Grief makes people uncomfortable, and I wasn't exactly doing a great job pretending I was fine. Then, one afternoon, Rhea called. We hadn't talked in years. She was my ex-girlfriend. The one that got away. Or rather, the one I let go because my life was a mess after our parents died, and I didn't want to drag her into it. She said she heard about Naomi through a mutual friend. She sounded gentle. She offered to stop by just to check in. I didn't have the strength to say no. She showed up with homemade lasagna and that same quiet smile I remembered. We sat on the couch for hours talking about Naomi, about grief, about how life had somehow stolen everything I cared about. Over the next few days, Rhea kept showing up. Cleaning dishes I hadn't touched, bringing groceries, sitting in silence when I had no words. It felt comforting, familiar. I didn't expect anything from her, but the quiet support felt like air in a room I'd been drowning in. After a month, she started spending the night more often. Eventually, she moved in. Not officially, just for now, to help me cope. I told myself I was lucky. Who else comes back into your life at your lowest and offers stability without asking for anything? But grief does strange things to your perception. At first, it was little things. She moved Naomi's photos from the living room to the hallway, said it was too painful to keep them in plain sight. I didn't argue. I figured she meant well. Then she replaced Naomi's soap in the bathroom with her own scent, rearranged the kitchen cabinets, packed up Naomi's violin and put it in the closet. "Less clutter," she said. I wanted to protest, but every time I opened my mouth, she'd tilt her head and say softly, "I'm just trying to help you move forward." And I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe someone had a plan for how I was supposed to keep living. About 6 weeks after Naomi's funeral, I came home early from work to find Rhea painting the piano room. Not cleaning, not rearranging. Painting, white walls, white curtains. The deep navy blue Naomi had picked out. Gone. Her framed recital photo? Taken down and leaning against a box labeled storage. Even the music notes Naomi had stenciled above the piano had been painted over. I stood in the doorway for a long minute, not saying anything. Rhea looked over her shoulder. "Hey, I didn't expect you back so soon. Don't you love it? It feels brighter, right?" I couldn't speak. My throat was tight. The smell of paint and lavender cleaner hit me like a punch. She walked over and took my hand gently. "I thought it was time. Naomi wouldn't want you stuck in a mausoleum." That word, mausoleum. I pulled my hand back. "You painted over her walls, without asking." Rhea's smile faded a little. "I thought you'd appreciate the gesture. I was doing this for us." I didn't answer. I walked past her, opened the piano bench. Naomi's sheet music was gone. I turned to Rhea. "Where are her things?" "In the closet," she said quickly. "I put them all together in a bin. Don't worry, nothing's gone." "She kept them organized for a reason," I muttered. Rhea crossed her arms. "Eldon, do you want to live in the past forever? Do you think this is what healing looks like? Sitting in a room that hasn't changed since she died, like she's going to walk in any second?" "Yes," I said, my voice low, because sometimes remembering hurts less than forgetting. She stared at me for a second. Then she walked out without another word. I spent the night in that half-painted room, sitting on the floor, staring at the blank walls where Naomi's life used to exist. The next morning, Rhea made coffee like nothing had happened. I didn't speak. I didn't know how. I felt like a stranger in my own home. 3 days later, she invited people over. A low-key dinner with some of her friends. I didn't want to go, but I didn't want to fight. I figured one night wouldn't kill me. Turns out it was the night that cracked everything wide open. Because during dessert, one of her friends looked around and said, "This place has such a good vibe now. It used to feel so heavy in here, like someone died or something." Rhea laughed. She looked at me and said, "Well, Naomi always did have a flair for the dramatic." Everyone laughed with her, everyone but me. I stared at her, my spoon frozen halfway to my mouth. And that was the moment I realized she hadn't come back to heal me. She came back to rewrite me. I didn't say anything that night. I sat there, watching Rhea and her friends laugh like nothing mattered, like Naomi was some awkward footnote in a story they were trying to rewrite. I stared at my half-eaten dessert, the sound around me fading until all I could hear was blood rushing in my ears. She looked so relaxed, so comfortable, like she had finally gotten what she wanted. A clean slate, a home without ghosts, a boyfriend who wouldn't push back. I stood up quietly, walked into the kitchen. My hands were shaking. I grabbed my coat and keys and left without saying a word. Rhea didn't even follow me. When I got back to the apartment around midnight, the party was over. The place was spotless, no sign there had been guests at all. She was curled up on the couch, watching TV like it was just another Tuesday. "You left?" she said, not even turning her head. "I did," I replied flatly, kicking off my shoes. A long silence. "You didn't say anything." "What was there to say?" I asked. "That you let your friends joke about my dead sister like she was some kind of inconvenience?" Rhea muted the TV and sat up. "They didn't joke. You're twisting it." "I'm twisting it?" I walked over and stood in front of her. "You laughed. You called Naomi dramatic. You stood there and let them talk about her like she was just furniture we finally cleared out." Rhea rolled her eyes. "You're being sensitive again." That word. Again. Like grief was some embarrassing personality quirk she had to tolerate. "I'm not being sensitive," I said through gritted teeth. "I'm being real. And if that's something you can't handle, then maybe we need to rethink." "Rethink what, Eldon?" she snapped, standing up. "That you're still clinging to someone who's gone? That this apartment is a shrine and I'm not allowed to breathe unless I ask permission from a ghost?" I stepped back. She was yelling now, angry, defensive. But I could see it, that glint in her eyes, the satisfaction of finally saying what she'd been holding back for weeks. "That's what this is about, isn't it?" I said quietly. "You never came back for me. You came back to replace her." She flinched like I'd slapped her. I turned and walked toward the piano room, opened the door. She'd finished painting it without me noticing. Bright white walls, no photos, no music stand, no trace of Naomi. "I'm moving out," I said. "What?" "I'm done," I said, voice calm but final. "This isn't my home anymore." She stared at me like she didn't recognize me. And maybe she didn't. Maybe the version of me who clung to her as a lifeline, who let her push and rearrange and erase. Maybe that version was finally gone. I packed a bag and left that night. Slept on my friend Theo's couch. Told him everything. He didn't say much, just handed me a beer and sat with me in silence. The next day I went back to the apartment to grab the rest of my things. Rhea was there, waiting. She looked tired, pale, still in her robe. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she said quietly. "I know," I replied, zipping up a suitcase. "But you did." She reached for my arm, but I stepped away. "You don't have to go," she said. "We can talk, work through this." "No, we can't," I said, "because this isn't about communication. It's about respect. And you lost mine the second you started trying to erase hers." She didn't follow me this time either. Over the next few days, I tried to rebuild. Slowly. I stayed with Theo, went back to work, started visiting Naomi's grave every Sunday like I used to. I even started playing piano again, at night when no one was around. Just me and the keys and the weight of everything I couldn't say out loud. A week later, I got a text from Rhea. "Hey, small thing, but do you happen to have the key to the storage locker? I can't find it." I frowned. There was only one storage locker, the one Naomi and I had shared for years. We used it to keep holiday stuff, old furniture, and boxes of childhood memories. I hadn't been there since she passed. "Why do you need the locker?" I replied. "Just wanted to make room in the closet. Figured I'd move some of the old boxes over." I froze. Naomi's things were in the closet. I called the facility immediately, gave my name, confirmed my ID. The receptionist was polite but confused. "Actually, sir, It shows here that someone already accessed the locker 2 days ago. Used a spare key. A woman named Rhea Collins. My blood turned to ice. I drove straight there. When I unlocked the door, half the boxes were gone. Gone. Naomi's photos, her recital trophies, the shoebox of handwritten songs, even the memory quilt our mom had sewn before she died. Everything was gone. I stormed back to the apartment and banged on the door. Rhea opened it slowly, looking startled. "Where are they?" I demanded. She blinked. "What?" "Naomi's things. The ones you took from the locker." "I didn't throw them out," she said quickly. "I just put them in the dumpster temporarily while I was rearranging." "Temporarily?" "I was going to sort through them," she said. "Some of it was so old, Eldon. I thought maybe—" I didn't wait. I ran outside to the apartment's dumpster. The bags were there, torn, soaked, mixed with trash. Naomi's childhood teddy bear, ruined. Her graduation cap, covered in coffee grounds. Her journal, pages crumpled, ink smeared. I dropped to my knees, hands shaking, pulling out what I could. But it was too late. The damage was done. I turned to see Rhea standing at the curb, arms crossed. "You're being dramatic again," she said, voice flat. I stood up, chest heaving. "You destroyed her, piece by piece, and you still don't get it." She opened her mouth to speak, but I was already walking away. I left the mess behind. Left the keys in her mailbox. Left every trace of her behind like she had done with Naomi. But later that night, as I sat in Theo's guest room trying to piece together what I'd salvaged, I found something I didn't expect. Inside a torn paper bag, stuffed between ripped sheet music, was an envelope, with my name written in Naomi's handwriting. I stared at it, heart racing. I hadn't seen this before. I hadn't even known it existed. I opened it slowly, hands trembling. And inside was a letter, from Naomi, written months before she died. And what it said changed everything. I stared at the envelope for a long time, my name written in Naomi's soft, slanted handwriting. The ink was smudged in places, like she'd hesitated, like she'd cried while writing it. I didn't even realize I was holding my breath until I opened the flap and pulled out the letter. It was dated 6 months before she died. "Eldon, I don't know if you'll ever read this, but I needed to say it, just in case something ever happens to me. And if you're holding this now, I guess that means something did." My vision blurred. My chest tightened. I kept reading. "I've been watching you carry everything on your back since Mom and Dad passed. You never let me see you break, not even once. But I know you. I see how tired you are, how hard it's been. And I want you to know something. Being strong doesn't mean disappearing into other people's expectations. You deserve a life that doesn't feel like survival." I had to stop reading for a second. My hands were shaking too much. I wiped my eyes and continued. "There's something else. Something I never told you because I didn't know how. But now I think you need to hear it." That sentence hit me like a punch to the gut. I read faster. "Rhea came to me a year ago, before you two reconnected. She wanted to talk. She said she missed you, but she didn't come to apologize. She wanted me to convince you to let her back in. She told me you were emotionally fragile and that if I pushed you gently, you'd lean on her again. She called it strategic support." I stopped. Number that couldn't be right. My stomach turned. I read the paragraph again, and again. Naomi had known. She hadn't told me. I told her to leave. I told her you needed healing, not manipulation. But I guess she didn't listen, and I didn't push harder. I'm sorry. I didn't want to believe someone could see your grief as an opportunity. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely think. I'd let her in. I let her rearrange my home, repaint Naomi's room, discard her belongings like clutter. And the entire time, she saw my pain as a leverage point. I dropped the letter, got up from the floor, pacing the room, fists clenched. I felt sick. I felt betrayed all over again. She didn't love me. She just wanted to be needed. And when Naomi wouldn't help her manipulate me, she did it on her own. Suddenly, every conversation played back in my head. Every time she said, "I'm here for you." Every time she said, "Let's move forward." Every time she laughed when someone mocked Naomi. It wasn't love. It was strategy. I grabbed my phone, typed her number, deleted it, then retyped it. I didn't know what I wanted. Answers? Apologies? Or just the satisfaction of letting her know she'd finally been exposed? But before I could hit call, a notification popped up. An email. From Rhea. Subject line: "You left this behind." Curious, I opened it. Attached was a photo. My mother's wedding ring. The one Naomi had kept safe in a velvet pouch, buried deep in the storage box. It was sitting on Ria's palm, and beneath it a message. Found this while sorting the boxes. Maybe now we're even. Even? Even for what? I didn't take anything from her. I didn't erase anyone's memory. I didn't trespass on grief like a scavenger looking for leverage. I stared at that image for a long time, my throat dry, my hands clammy. She still didn't get it. To her, grief was a currency, and I had paid more than I'd ever agreed to. I replied only 3 words. Keep the ring. And then I blocked her. For good. That was the moment I stopped waiting for closure. Because some doors don't close quietly. They slam, and they echo. It's been 2 weeks. I've been living at a friend's place, slowly trying to rebuild what little pieces of myself I have left. I visit Naomi's grave every Sunday, just like we used to visit Mom and Dad. I play her favorite sonata on an old upright piano someone donated to the community center. The notes are rusty, but they're hers. Some nights I still can't sleep. Not because I miss Ria, but because I miss who I was before I let someone like her define how I healed. Grief already takes enough. You shouldn't have to guard your heart while grieving, too. I don't know if anyone reading this has ever felt the same kind of betrayal. The kind that sneaks in through a smile, through a helping hand, through someone who claims to care. But only if it serves them. But if you have, you're not crazy. You're not too sensitive. You're not broken for needing your memories to be honored. You're human. And maybe like me, you're still learning that healing isn't about forgetting. It's about choosing who deserves to stand beside you while you remember. I used to think healing was something that happened in the quiet. Turns out, sometimes it starts with a bang. After Naomi's letter and Ria's email, something inside me snapped into place. Not in a chaotic, falling apart kind of way, but in that quiet, deliberate way people choose themselves for the first time. I wasn't going to sit in grief anymore. I was going to stand in it. And I was going to make damn sure Ria never had the power to erase my sister. Or me. Again. The first thing I did was call the storage facility. I asked for a log of every time the unit had been accessed in the last 60 days. They were hesitant at first, but after verifying my identity, they emailed me the full record. Ria had been there 5 times. Not once. Not twice. 5. She hadn't just stumbled on Naomi's things. She'd been planning something. I went back to the storage unit that afternoon. There were boxes missing. But more than that, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. Several items had been swapped. Naomi's journal was back, but it was a different edition. The pages weren't the same. Her handwriting wasn't there. My stomach dropped. Ria hadn't just discarded Naomi's things. She'd replaced them with replicas. So I'd never know. So she could throw away the real memories. And I'd never notice. I stared at the box in front of me, hands trembling. This wasn't grief-fueled ignorance. This was calculated. This was control. This was theft. Of a life, of a legacy, of a family story. I took photos of everything, documented it all. Then I did something I hadn't done in months. I walked back into my old apartment building, not to see Ria, to see the building manager. His name's Aaron, mid-50s, cranky but fair. Naomi used to bake cookies for his grandkids every December. I knocked on his office door. When he saw me, his face softened. "Eldon," he said, standing up. "You okay, son?" "Getting there," I said. "Can I ask a huge favor?" He sat back down. "Shoot." I explained everything. The stolen items, the storage log, the forged copies, the way Ria had slowly taken over my life and erased my sister. He didn't interrupt, just listened. Quietly. Then he nodded once. "You want the security footage?" I blinked. "You knew?" "I figured something was off when she asked if she could access your mailbox while you were away," he said. "Said you'd given her permission. Something didn't sit right." I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Aaron pulled up the camera archive. We watched the footage from the dates on the storage log. Sure enough, there she was, hauling out boxes, calling someone on speakerphone, saying things like, "He'll never know," and "I just need to finish sorting before he asks questions." I asked Aaron if I could get a copy of the recordings. He handed me a flash drive without blinking. "Don't let her walk all over you again," he said. Naomi wouldn't have. That night, I didn't sleep. I made a list. What she took, what she replaced, what she said, what she did. And then I emailed it all. Not to Ria, to her boss, and her company's HR department. Because here's the thing. Ria works in wellness PR. She makes a living preaching emotional integrity, healing spaces, and respectful communication. She's built an entire career on empathy branding. And yet, behind closed doors, she exploited a grieving man, desecrated his sister's memory, and manipulated him for attention and control. I didn't send the email to get her fired. I sent it because I knew she would panic the moment her image was on the line. And I was right. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls, all from her, all ignored. By lunch, I had an email from her office assistant asking if I'd be willing to clarify some of the contents of my message. I replied with one sentence. Everything is documented. If you need further details, my lawyer will be in touch. I don't actually have a lawyer, but apparently I didn't need one. Because 48 hours later, I received an official statement. Ria was on extended leave and under internal review. She texted me that night. "Why are you doing this? This is vindictive." I replied, "No. This is justice." But the real twist, that came 3 days later. I was going through one of the few boxes I had managed to salvage from Naomi's real belongings, ones Ria hadn't touched. I opened a faded folder Naomi used for paperwork. Inside was a sealed manila envelope with a post-it stuck to the front. "For Eldon, open if she ever comes back." My blood ran cold. If she ever comes back. I tore it open. Inside was a series of printed emails, all between Ria and an estate planning consultant, dated 7 months before Naomi's death. The emails were chilling. I'm not saying he'll hand over the policy, but if Naomi dies first, he might. He's emotionally codependent. I know how to guide him. He listens when you speak like his sister. Once I'm in the apartment, I'll take care of the rest. Just need access to the safe. I dropped the papers. My hands went numb. This wasn't manipulation. This was premeditated exploitation. Ria had been planning this for nearly a year before Naomi died. She'd been trying to get to Naomi. Through kindness, through pressure, through me. And when Naomi refused, she waited for tragedy to do the job for her. I sat there for a long time. No rage, no tears, just silence. Because when betrayal runs that deep, it doesn't scream. It sinks. I don't know if anyone reading this has ever found out someone they trusted planned your pain before it even happened. But if you have, you're not alone. And if you haven't, check your circle twice. Not everyone who brings comfort intends to keep you whole. Some people see grief as a door and walk right through it. I didn't sleep the night I found those emails. The idea that someone could anticipate your grief and then prepare to weaponize it, that broke something in me. Not in a way that left me hollow, but in a way that made me sharp, focused. I printed the emails. I highlighted dates. I listed timelines. And I contacted someone I never thought I'd need. Naomi's old friend, Julia, who worked in legal compliance for a private foundation. We met at a coffee shop the next morning. I slid the folder across the table without saying a word. She flipped through it in silence, her fingers tightening the deeper she read. She planned to move in before Naomi died? Julia asked, almost in disbelief. I nodded. Julia stared at the final email, the one that said, "Once I'm in, he'll be too lost to question anything." Then she looked up at me. "You need to report this," she said. "I don't want money. I don't want drama," I said quietly. "I just want people to know who she really is." She leaned forward. "Then let me help you make sure they do." Over the next few days, Julia guided me through everything. A formal legal complaint, digital forensics, and reporting the emails to the proper board that oversaw Ria's professional certifications. Apparently, someone in her field making financial insinuations around a potential life insurance policy while using deception was more than unethical. It was disqualifying. I kept it quiet. Didn't respond to Ria's texts or her desperate email begging me to let this go. She even wrote, "None of this changes the fact that I was trying to love you." I didn't answer, because love doesn't plan its entrance around your sister's death. Then, about 2 weeks later, the final domino fell. Julia forwarded me a link to a press release. Ria's name was listed in a public suspension notice from her certifying board. Pending investigation, she was no longer allowed to practice, represent her agency, or speak as an expert in any professional or public space. The agency removed her from all branding within 24 hours, and her carefully curated online presence, the one built on healing others with honesty, gone. No lawsuit, no public scandal, no revenge porn or viral exposure, just erasure. The same kind she tried to do to Naomi. Except this time it was her name being wiped clean, and I didn't need to raise my voice once. I didn't celebrate. There was no parade, no "I told you so." There was just quiet, the good kind. I went back to the piano room a few days later. The one I'd moved into a new apartment. No white walls, no sterile energy, just sunlight, wood floors, and the sound of Naomi's sonata echoing gently off the walls. I opened the velvet pouch I'd kept hidden inside my dresser. Inside was my mother's wedding ring. Not the one Rhea had sent me a photo of, the real one. I'd forgotten that Naomi gave it to me for safekeeping years ago, long before any of this. What Rhea photographed was a replica Naomi used to teach harmony through symbolism. The circle, the promise, the illusion. Turns out, the real ring never left me. Just like Naomi never really did. It's been 4 months. Rhea's name hasn't come up in weeks. Her number's blocked. Her photos deleted. But her impact? That lingers. Sometimes when someone betrays you so deeply, they don't just steal trust. They steal your sense of reality. You begin to doubt the shape of your own memories, the texture of your grief. But I've learned this. No one gets to narrate your story but you. Not the one who left. Not the one who lied. Not the one who tried to rewrite your past because it didn't fit their version of your future. I wish I could tell you this ends with healing tied neatly in a bow. It doesn't, but it ends with truth. And for me, that's enough. Because justice isn't always about punishment. Sometimes it's about reclaiming the silence someone else tried to fill with their voice, and choosing to speak your own instead. The people who try to erase the dead often forget. Memory doesn't die with the body. It lives in the people who refuse to let go quietly. That closure isn't something you find. It's something you decide. And justice doesn't have to be loud. It just has to be earned. If any of you reading this have ever had someone take advantage of your loss, twist your grief for their gain, I see you. I am you. And I hope you share your story in the comments too. Not for sympathy, but so someone else knows they're not alone. And if you feel ready, I'd be honored if you stuck around. Sometimes the stories we tell each other are the only proof we were ever heard.